this morning. We are talking about church as well. And Bishop, the Gen Z protests, one of the things that they pushed for was to deplatform the politicians in church. And because people felt that when they come to church, you're just giving them a platform to come and perpetuate lies, hatred and animosity, and not doing their work. Right now, in the middle of this, political issue of the deputy president and the president, there's been reports of the church and clergy attempting to mediate. And the reaction from the public has been, why would the church come in now? What's the church's role in this? The church has lost its mandate. The church has lost its moral high ground. What do you say to that?
That's a point that is very clear. And standing in here for the clergy, I can mention it and say that the moment we take sides, I'm saying I don't allow them on the pulpit personally. And maybe I don't have many who may desire to come where I am, maybe. But I think it's wrong, allowing them to interfere with the program. And I'll say it categorically. When the church members are coming to church, they are coming to seek God, they are coming to pour their hearts to God, and that is the way it should be. So in the middle of all this, and somebody comes and overrides and takes even more minutes than the preacher, to me, I feel it's a disservice to this hungry soul that came. That's my take. And I also want to say I've been to churches, even ministering in other denominations, and I've seen them categorically. They don't let anybody, even if you are a member and you are a politician, and maybe you are even a church deacon or a church elder, you are only acknowledged to do what you are supposed to do in the church. So I would say on the other side, we have some that are there. But the question you're asking is pertinent and very important to say that in future, we need to be careful and we tread carefully to some of these things, because today it's true. Everybody, including those that feel this side is wrong, the other one says this side is right, everybody is confused, because it's like pastor told us this person was good. Now how can I believe him when he starts now showing me that we pray for this one now? Things are going bad. And we pray for this one, or we thank God for this one, things are going right. So the question is real. But let me say, because we also believe God, if the church made a mistake, there is a room for what we call forgiveness. And that now transitions even to the individuals that are in the leadership. Forgiveness is there. And I would say even right now between the president and the deputy president, we expected not maybe a long dialogue, but at least they sit and agree, because these things came to the Mwananchi. Sometimes it's like a shock. So people are wondering what has just happened. And one thing we can't judge now, you cannot have the right to judge the president, because the hardest thing to do is to fight a silent person. Somebody, when I'm silent, you cannot bring issues, you can tell me until I speak. So this is what I'm saying. Can there be dialogue? I like what I heard the Archbishop of Anglican Church yesterday. Sorry to mention them, but he said something very important. It's like mahali imefika, where it has reached now. It's about them. For us, we just pray because of the consequences of the outcomes. So my point here is, would have wished to see that. I'm saying, even if the church has no moral authority now, if that is what people may think, then can the individual surrender to the God they have spoken about and maybe bring things to the right? Because what we are seeing from where I'm sitting is that it's like we have gotten into a political wave. And I don't know until when, because when I see the deputy president is moving to every dimension of judiciary, so I don't think there's somebody who is ready to cool down even when impeached. That's my assessment. And all these politicians, the ground they thrive on, it is in the presence of the monarchy. And every one of them must try now to exonerate himself or herself. And the people must hear this. So we are going to have a lot of confusion, if I may say so. And that's my take.
You know, we have had this conversation before, even in the run-up to the election, City. And we're asking ourselves, if we look back at the trust that the people have on their religious leaders. Because this is a trust that's, given to their religious leaders. Give us guidance. Show us the true north. Always keep pointing us towards the true north, even when we are swayed by things out here. And it's like those who are supposed to be the guardians and, the guides to the true north have also just gotten into this whole mix. They're also just as confused as we are. Then where are we as a country? And that's where, City, you come in.
Yes.
Because we asked ourselves, so who will lead us to the true north?
We do have an example. In this country, there was a time when we had a president who spoke about God with the same frequency as the current president, the deputies speak about God. But at that same time, there were many things happening in the country that you would have difficulties aligning them to somebody who claimed to know God personally. And people like the Bishop Okulu, people like Njoya, they actually spoke out clearly.
Yep.
Now, the argument has been in this dispensation that we have, which church men, which members of the clergy do we hear speaking out directly and saying, look, folks, this is wrong.
Yeah.
This isn't right. We cannot accept that this is true. And you see, that brings me to the book of Galatians chapter 6, verse 7 and 8. Which says, do not be deceived. God will not be mocked. And if I were to take that verse, then I would take the view that the division that we are seeing between the president and the deputy is you are calling on God's name, and then you have all these atrocities which are being associated with you. Surely. Then it gives a very different view of the God they claim to believe in. Because we say, God cannot be associated with certain things that we see, certain things that are in the public domain. Then the complaint is, but surely men of the cloth ought to be speaking against these things loudly. Now, in their silence, the strength and the power and the trust that was there has been depleted over time.
You could be right, but I want to tell you people that we have some. We have some, but they have no avenues to be had. And I want to be sincere on that, because it's the same Bible when you look at Ecclesiastes, that there is this man who was very wise and managed to rescue their small city from a very strong king. But after he saved the city, the Bible says nobody remembered him again. Nobody acknowledged him because he's poor. And I want to say, if you go to the social media, you see those who can only find a platform on social media. Maybe he's not well known that you people can call him here to talk. There are people who are very serious about this. And I want you to know, and that's why we cannot categorize everybody to be a failed church leader. However, it may appear today that the church is unable maybe to speak loudly, and we are praying about it. But it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. The God we believe, who is able to restore, you are going to see that. And that's what I told you, that when you talk of church, even our young people are there. Like when they say they want to occupy, I was asking,
church.
I wish they come to our church, because they are the same people we want to guide and help them so that they see, the transition of whatever we are calling. But may I also say this, when I look at the issue, because about religious leaders, where else do everybody runs to when some things are so difficult? I saw another person saying, a church leader, and I think I looked at him and I said, okay. He said, now you people, you go out, you spoil yourself, destroy yourself, you're drinking 50,000 beer. Then when you die, you want me to bury you free of charge. I looked at that and I said, sometimes we need to look at things from our perspective. That the church leader is expected to behave in a certain way.
Yes.
Do you know? I'll give an example. The other day, somebody was to give me money wrongly. She had sent me the money through M-Pesa and forgot. And then, when we met after 2 months, she was busy in her handbag getting an envelope. It was an allowance that we were supposed to be given. I'll give an example. So, she's busy looking for the envelope, and it is
she
true.
can give you the money.
The envelope had the 5,000 that belonged to me. But I said, excuse me, madam. I went to my M-Pesa messages. I remembered the date. I showed her. She took it so lightly, but I could tell. It's because he's a bishop. He must be honest. Are you looking at that? But in the context of a human being, she should also see it, that this human being is honest. Are you getting that? Yesterday I was preaching about the donkey that carried Jesus. People did not, see it like it's a major deal, because donkeys are known to carry loads. But look at that, this donkey is special. Actually, it's carrying a very important person. So we may look at the donkey from the perspective of performance, responsibility, duty, and not as a person. So I want to say here, we have church leaders in their personality, in their own lives. They are serious. And I'm telling you, this country is loved by God because
do we have a
praying.
critical mass of those straight church leaders? And I agree with you.
Yes.
There are church leaders who periodically speak. You've mentioned Archbishop Olesapit. He even taken a point of saying and declaring that in the Anglican Church, we shall not take harambe contributions from politicians unless you come with a check, no cash. So we can trace back to where your source of money is. We have such leaders, yes. But are they many? Even in the wake of what happened in Shakahola, for example, where the president formed a task force led by a clergyman, respected, Mutava Musiemi, and a report has come there and says, let us find a way of regulating religious organizations in this country. Church leaders out there saying you cannot control God. You cannot control God. And there's no other church leader who's coming out to say, no, we must regulate. Those that think that, yes, it needs to happen, are quiet. It's a conspiracy of silence, Bishop.
Let me ask you a question very important. When you talk of regulations, Are you expecting the church where you also and your family go to worship to start being micromanaged? Because when you talk of regulations, we must look at the details.
Yes.
Would you like the same assembly to be micromanaged by the same authority or government that we're talking about today?
No, I want it to be micromanaged
Are
by
you
law.
expecting the Kenya National Union of Teachers to allow the government to regulate whatever? So I'm only giving an example. I know what you are talking about. In regulations, I think there are some things that are so vividly clear. Because for sure, when you bring in the issue of Shakahora, separate church leadership or clergy and the person who did that. And this is where we talk of systems and persons.
And that's what that report is proposing.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That you create systems. But what you're hearing is an opposition to anything that touches it.
Not today.
Right?
Not today. That
when
one
they say you cannot touch the church,
that one
we are not going to. Those who believe that what happened in Chakahola, those who believe that there are preachers who come out to say that I can heal you, I can cure you of HIV, those who say bring all your sick and let's lock them up in a room here and they shall be healed. Those who don't see that that is right, they don't speak out.
I want to say there is a confusion here. And I want you to understand me. Personally, I've been asking myself, this man in Shakahora, what is the law doing? Sijui taking through the process. Today, if another pastor rapes a girl, what is happening? The speed at which this pastor is hardled, jailed, already prosecuted. We are asking ourselves also to not talk of the church and Shakahora. This is a person with a failed mechanism, has done all this. We are saying simply, we have our umbrella bodies. We are going to look, and let me tell you, they are working, those umbrella bodies. Since the time of, I think, the Attorney General, I'm trying to
Get the
Muigai. When we started these umbrella bodies, they had to help us have churches, different denominations under one roof. And I'll tell you, the misbehaviors, if we are allowed now to mention, majority are not under such umbrellas, because when we are meeting as bishops, there are things that we are looking at. There are things we are agreeing upon. Yes, your church is named after this name, it is the other one. But remember, these are our objectives. This is the way to go. There is still hope, my friend. You cannot condemn the church fully.
Actually, it isn't condemnation, Bishop. It is...
No, the way the public now looks at, and mostly the politicians who are...
But politicians consider the church as a direct challenge to the authority.
Yes.
Because they would like to do things in a certain way. And the public, us, we expect the church to stand up for us. Because one of the roles of the church is to stand up for those who are oppressed, to be the voice of those who are disadvantaged. That is a key role of the church. But what is now being brought to question is the term and the concept of self-regulation. You see, when you talk about something that began supposedly as a church and became a cult, okay? Self-regulation. Because the church welcomes church self-regulation. They say this can be done. But the self-regulation the church speak of, is it in the public domain? Do we know what it is that you use as the tenets for self-regulation? Are we informed, or do I need to be part of a particular church to be informed of what that church, like for instance, the church I go to, I'm aware of how they conduct their business. Why? Because I'm a member of that particular church.
Yeah.
The question that is being raised is one that must be taken with utmost seriousness, because the church cannot afford to fall into ill repute. The church cannot, and I mean the umbrella, not one particular church. The church cannot afford to be considered not to be the one voice of reason in a country such as ours. Because if that happens, the gap that the church leaves is too profound to even imagine. Because who then will stand in that gap? We then have this assembly of people whom we are elected running amok.
Yeah.
Yes, I finished what I'm saying.
I can feel it. I can feel it. And my friend has said very well. He knows, you know you are where you go, that assembly, because you are a member. Just like you know your family because you're a member of that family, and I know very little about you. But let me, because I don't know, time may not be so much on our side. I want to say this. Can we say we are all in church? And I said, if you are not in a mosque, you're in a church. Can we ask ourselves then, if I'm silent today, what should be said and what should be done?
Yeah.
The blame should not be entirely to the church, because like now there are things I'm saying.
Who should we blame instead of the church when the functions that we're talking about are functions that the church must perform? Who should we blame?
We blame all ourselves. Just like, let me say, we are talking of elections here. People use their brains wrongly. Then we want to blame a certain dimension.
Actually, we must, Bishop, because when you speak...
I'm accepting the point that there are people to blame.
When you speak, Bishop,
yeah,
believe me, you speak on behalf of very many people.
Yes.
And they believe what you say, and it represents them fully. See, that really is the point. In fact, it represents them more than even the member of parliament can represent them.
Are you expecting me to come here and say the church has totally failed?
I'm coming here to expect you to say the church has failed in certain aspects.
Yes.
Yes.
But I'm saying this.
Yes.
The same church.
Yes.
We are running to cry unto God. You and I.
Yes.
Because you must believe my point. You must differentiate between the systems and the personalities. Now look at this. By the way, when we were doing literature, you did the animal farm.
I did literature, I even taught it.
Yes, the animal farm. When you look at the seven commandments, I want you to base on that somehow. And there are so many commandments, but the one that they really emphasized, and we know who emphasized, is that all animals are equal, but more are equal than others. But if you look at their rule number 3, I think it's number 2, they say that creatures with 4 legs and 2 wings are our friends. But creatures with 2 legs are our enemies. Because I don't want us to forget where we were. We're talking about this governance and all this. Do you know, today the 4 legs can be the 4 wheels and the wings can be the choppers. And the 2 legs...
The bishop has gone to the book of Ezekiel. But go on.
Walking on feet. And coming to commandment number 7, that all animals are equal. But some animals are more equal than others. I want to state to everybody in the leadership, and especially the governance of this country, can you please come to terms with the realities? We expect you to do the work we gave you. I've been challenged here to go and do the work I was called to do as a bishop. I'm now calling everyone in leadership. Can you please come to terms with the realities we want to see? And should this talk about impeachment go whichever direction, can we ask the leaders, the same way we expect the country to move and grow and develop, we expect them to develop that sense of understanding that the common Mwananchi is ailing and has problems.
Bishop, well said. And thank you very much for saying the way you've said it. Bishop Dr. David Makimei. He is from the Jesus New Life Ministries. Thank you for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation today. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Have a lovely day. It's 10 a.m.
It's now 10 o'clock with Safaricom. Go monthly with an all-in-one bundle and enjoy convenience and value with Safaricom.